Thank you. Cool. So yeah, before we start, I've got a quick question. Who's got a 13-inch M2/3/4 MacBook Air? Anyone? Keep your hands up. Who has stickers on their laptop? Who wants stickers on their laptop? Who wants a D-brand skin? If you've got, come on.
There's no other takers.
There's no other takers. I've got a D-brand skin. That's because you turned up.
It's actually my DJ laptop, so that'd be good.
Oh, there you go. So the reason I've got a spare one is if you're ever buying skins from D-brand, you get the metallic ones. If you buy the single ones, they send you one. If you get the metallic ones, they send you two, because this can affect Wi-Fi, apparently. So just in case, they'll send you the spare one. But I like using them because you can stick your stickers on the skin and then you can just peel it off and keep your stickers when you bring it back. Anyway, so so this is, so I'm Bart Reardon. I work for the CSIRO. And this is essentially a recap of kind of like this stuff that I've gone through with writing, software and helping the other MacAdmin tools and stuff like that. So it's more of like a, feel free to get involved in all this stuff if you want to. It's easy. If I can do it, anyone can. That's the original starting slide that I had, but I had a new one, so I did. Also, if we finish a little bit early, I think that probably might not be too bad. I don't mind being at the end of the day, so we'll see how we go. So I'm just going to go through with a little bit of the current state of the open source landscape, how things are, I guess, in generally in the open source world. So I don't know if you don't know Daniel Stenberg. So Daniel is the author of a little application that's called curl. You may have heard of it. This was a project that he started off, he had a need. That need sort of filled his thing, and then he decided to share his tool. And I'm pretty sure that it's used in a lot of places. Recently, Daniel did oh, by the way, I actually asked Daniel if I could use his slides and stuff like that, and he gave me the thumbs up, so that's pretty cool. So he gave a talk at FrostCon. This is actually a talk, the main topic of this talk was going through AI slop in terms of people reporting bugs and that kind of stuff. But the first 5 minutes of this talk is, it's gold in terms of, getting an idea of where things are sort of in open source. So basically most of modern software is basically built on open source software. The iceberg sort of diagram isn't as accurate as what an iceberg actually looks like, but it's very much sort of representative of sort of how things look. There is a lot of stuff that you don't see underneath, in this using open source tooling. However, most projects are a single maintainer. It's just and when I say a single maintainer, I mean literally one, not like one with like 2 or 3 people chiming in every so often. Most projects are a spare time hobby for a lot of people. Some people are very lucky enough to be able to turn it into their job, or they might get sponsorship to do it. But yes, it very much starts as a hobby. Most are underfunded. There are a lot of outstanding things. I know in my own projects, I have sort of bugs and feature requests and things I want to add that are in the wings. If I had all the time in the world and that's all I did, I'd probably get most of them done in like a month or two. But as is, a lot of these things, they go over time. And of course, a lot of maintainers sort of end up with burnout. You get sort of, you're sort of toiling on this thing. And you get a few people using it and whatnot, but a lot of times you'll see a project and then it'll just go with 0 updates for quite a while. Generally speaking, the maintainers like busy with their day job, and trying to sort of make that balance. If you get the chance, do go and actually have a look at Daniel's site. So I think there was a QR code at the beginning there. There'll be another one at the end. So yeah, so go have a look at this talk. It's really, really good. The first 5 minutes, obviously, for this. The rest of it, if you're interested in having a look at what AI slop looks like when it comes to bug reports and stuff. The next one is an article that came out only a few days ago, actually. So Josh Precious wrote a post up, and this is again sort of like on the terms of like almost all open source software, literally one person. I do encourage you go and actually read his blog post. It's really good. There are a few points where he basically says if you keep on reading, you're going to get angry by the time you get to the bottom of this post. But just to sort of like hint on a few of the points that are in there, and these are pulled from the article. So yeah, so this is a website called Ecosys. I'm going to call it Ecosystems. So ecosysd.ms. So yeah, Ecosystems, they collect some data about open source projects, how they're being used and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, 11.8 million open source projects, 7 million of those one person, 4 million no stats on how many maintainers, all right? But if you do the calculation of that, essentially it's saying that 90% of projects are a single person. And if you want to see what that looks like in graph form, and again, this is from the post, looks like that. So lots of projects, one single developer, and then not a lot. If you're into NPM, then the graph even looks like this. And no, that is not a green line at the top, that is literally the graph. It falls off pretty quick. The next one is essentially projects with over 1 million downloads. So if we calculate just projects with over 1 million downloads, it's nearly 50-50 that these projects only have one single developer sort of developing on it. And a little quote from Harvard Business School. Open source software, $9 trillion resource companies take for granted. So essentially what I'm trying to get to here is that open source software is and this is the most overused XKCD comic. I think if you know what I'm talking about, you know what's coming. It's that one. Yeah, so this is literally I've seen a better version of this one where it's less two little bricks and one little thing and more like a tower of one little things and then just like this thing on top. So yeah, really underpinning the message that these projects, a lot of them are just passion projects. A lot of people just work on them for fun, but they do, get used in quite a few areas. So there's a little bit of pressure on that for developers to keep going with their projects and hopefully get some help, which leads to why your help matters. So if it hasn't been sort of obvious, then hopefully, by the end of this, you'll get an idea that even just a little bit of help in these projects, whatever it happens to be, is very much appreciated. I know that when I get help, from people, whether it's from helping with actual code or something else, that it really helps me sort of go, yeah, this is great. Like I want to keep going with this, and it helps to like move the project forward, especially. I've been stuck at times. So that's just going over just a single slide deck before I added all those other stuff at the beginning of the deck, which was literally me last night punching this stuff in. So all that was going to be one sec. So macOS at MacAdmins, obviously no strangers to using open source products at all. A lot of the stuff we use is developed either by individuals or they're developed by companies and shared, and I'm trying not to trip over that in the background. And so there are a lot of pieces of software that we use. A lot of those you probably recognised or may not recognise. This is a list that I got off the macadmins.io website, so they've got a nice list there of bunch of open source projects, so I thought I'll just stick them in a bunch of tags there. How many was that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 by 1. 7 by 10. So yeah, that's 69 because there's one missing down the bottom. So yeah, so there's a lot of projects out there that and this is in the comprehensive list by any means. This is just ones that were on their website. A lot of these ones you'll recognise, of course. So you know, Monkey, Nomad, auto packages, stuff like that. All of these tools have become essentially, well, all these tools have become essential to how we do, you know, what we do. You know, whether it's, you know, telling people to update their Macs using Nudge, or whether it's, you know, using escrow buddy to, you know, store file lock keys, or whatever the case might be. So the question comes about is you know, what type of levels of contribution are there? I think a lot of people think that in order to contribute to an open source project, you sort of need to know how to code, or you need to how to, you know, do that kind of stuff. And so a lot of people sort of say, well, I'm not a developer, so I don't know how to write, whether it's, you know, C or Objective-C or Swift or, you know, whatever language, you know, Rust or Go and all that sort of stuff. Like, if you're not familiar with that, or, you know, programming paradigms and things like that, it might seem a bit sort of overwhelming. So if you're not a developer, there are still ways that you can help though. All right, so you can, you know, help out with documentation. You know, if you use the product and you know how to use it, and you notice that there's an area that isn't quite documented, or isn't, you know, might be out of date or something like that, jumping in and, you know, approaching the project and seeing if you can help out with a you know, documentation step. Bug reporting is huge. No one reports bugs. So, you know, it might seem like, you know, if you have a look at a lot of projects, you'll have like the issues register, and you might see things coming in and things closed off, and there'll be stuff there waiting and all sorts of stuff. So it looks busy, but in terms of like how many users there are of these products versus how many bugs actually get reported, you know, it's very, very slim. File a bug report, even if you think that it's not a bug, you know, even if you think this looks a bit weird, or even if it's just a documentation thing. You know, just stick it in a bug report. The worst that's going to happen is someone might look at it and they'll go, oh, this actually not an issue, and they might just put a message in that and close it off, right? But that is better than having nothing at all, and, you know, going through the process of like, well, I'm not seeing this bug because I don't have this particular set of this environment or whatever, and so it might go missed. So if you report it and get it seen, then that's a good thing. Testing, again, just as much, even fewer people test than actually file bug reports. So just, you know, personally, I'll push out like a preview release, whether it's Swift Dialog or Outset or something else, and say, you know, this is, you know, go test this new feature or whatever the case might be. And, you know, the results for those are normally fairly slim. I've got a few people that sort of help test out things with me, but, you know, generally, you know, a lot of these things, you know, people don't sort of, you know, get in there and really try these things out, and whether it's like in a dev environment or something like that, chuck it in a VM, that kind of stuff. Anything you can do to help. If you're interested in this project and succeeding and all that sort of stuff, you know, jump in and kick the tires on the new version. The other one is user interface, user experience suggestions. You know, if you've got an idea, stick that in feedback, send it to the developer. It might sit in a queue for a month, 2 months, a year, but, you know, these ideas come up, and if they're good, then they'll get implemented. Personal experience, most of the features in Swift Dialog come in from people who say, hey, I would like it to be able to do this. Or, you know, when I click this, it looks a bit funny, can I do this instead? So, you know, that's a way to improve. And again, these aren't, you know, you don't have to think like a developer, you don't have to be a developer, you don't have to be aware of how that process works. You know, just suggesting things is really good. If you're bilingual, translation and localization, huge. I speak one language, it's Australian, and I speak it okay-ish. So, you know, I don't know any other languages. A lot of these apps do have, you know, need translation for other markets. If you see something in there that's missing, or if you see something in there it's translated wrong because I used, you know, Google Translate to do the translation, you know, offer a fix. There's a whole bunch of projects that succeed with multiple languages because people offer in, translations for all the stuff. And you can ask for this kind of stuff too. You can say, even if it's closed source, right? You can actually say, hey, you don't have this in this language that I know. Can you chuck me the strings file that has a list of all the strings? And I'll go through and I'll translate them all for you. So stuff like that, it's really good. And the one, community support, jump in forums, Slack, Reddit, whatever. If you know something and someone asks a question, you know how to answer it, jump in and answer it. Really good way to help out. Evangelism and internal advocacy, if you like a thing, give it a shout out. Yay! So, let's say you are a developer. Like, there's the developer ways you can help out. So the main one there, code review. I know I can write bugs really, really well. Other people can spot them better than I can spot them most times. Code review is really important. A lot of projects, again, those single developer projects, they don't have anyone reviewing their code. It looks fine to them. There's a really, I was going to put up the, Obama patting himself on the back meme or whatever it is. When you do your own pull request into your own repo, it sort of feels a bit sort of weird. But, code review is a huge help. Bug fixing, if you see a bug and you know how to fix it, clone the repo, submit a PR. I've had a bunch of bugs in Swift Dialog being fixed this way. A few people just pull it, they go how to fix it, off they go. That's pull requests, etc. Now, if you are a developer, unfortunately, ChatGPT thinks you look like that. So it looks very, generic, and you might be a developer or you might be the dude from Jurassic Park. Who knows? So you're still not a developer, but you might want to be. There are a huge amount of tools that you can look at to sort of help with this kind of thing. So there's 100 Days of Swift if you want to do Swift coding, 100 Days of Swift UI. They're both with Hacking with Swift. I'll have some links at the end. There's books about Bash. There's all that sort of stuff. Like if you're keen at all, jump in. Not everyone has to have a degree in developing, in sort of like writing code and all that sort of stuff. I did my education the previous century, and Swift didn't exist then. It exists now. Hopefully, I know a little bit of it. Mid-90s, what do you think a good language would be to learn? Like if you're sort of like you're going to work in business, you're going to be working on business applications. C? C is excellent. C is the first letter in the word COBOL, which is the language that I learned. I have not used COBOL outside of that. So, but having said that, these kind of languages, once you sort of learn the sort of like the basic principles of writing a program, and it doesn't have to be like a lot of people have done it already just by writing bash scripts. If you use function as a bash script, you're like halfway there. Jump in, you get a language, just build a project, Xcode's there, it's free, go and download it, do your thing. So getting started with this kind of thing, so this covers sort of like everything, like if you're, whether you're a developer or not, and you just want to sort of get in there, there's sort of like some do's and don'ts, some etiquette and bits and pieces. A lot of code, obviously GitHub is huge, there's a lot of stuff on there in GitLab. People post stuff to MacAdmin Slack and nowhere else. There's channels in there that are devoted to a thing, and that's where it lives. So all these sort of things, you're probably in there already, seeing these kind of things. Just sort of, keep an eye out for what's out there. In terms of engaging, on GitHub, generally there'll be like a contributing.md if they've got one, which will lay out some details of how you can sort of, help out. You can say hi to people, have a look through the issues. If it's in GitHub, most of the stuff's public there. Reach out to maintainers, ask how you can help. And again, try and jump in, try beta release or whatever it is, have a go. Don't be demanding. The number one thing that can really sort of kill someone's vibe because especially like these are passion projects people are writing. A lot of people aren't getting paid for this, so jumping in, being demanding, saying you need to do this, or it needs to have this, or you're going to do, or whatever. You know, that sort of never helps, so don't do that. Really starting small, just getting in, helping with anything, could be a typo or anything, just jump in. And with feedback cycles, again, a lot of people doing this in their spare time. So, you know, if you post an issue and you say, you know, this thing's broken in this way, it could be, you know, they could get back to you straight away. It could be weeks or months before someone gets back to you. You know, it's not a, you know, a lot of people aren't being paid to do this kind of stuff. So yeah, just remember, just, you know, have a bit of respect for the people who are working on the stuff and sharing their things.
True story from 2 days ago. I got an email that my PR from 2021 had been merged.
Oh, there we go. We get there eventually.
Not yours.
Not mine.
Similar situation.
I might have PRs that are older than that. Yeah, so, you know, jump in. There's a whole bunch of, there's a wealth of info on how to use Git, GitHub basics. A lot of the documentation, especially well, most of the documentation these days is written in Markdown. So, you know, go and, you know, learn how to read Markdown, how to edit it, how to update it, add tables. A lot of the issue with documentation really comes down to formatting. I can stick words on a page, not a problem. When it comes to formatting it and putting stuff in tables and headings and like you know, all that sort of, it's like, I've just written a thing, I don't want to go in and edit that. So even if you know how to go in and format a document, like, jump in. In GitHub, you can actually clone a GitHub wiki. You can't issue a pull request into a GitHub wiki, which is kind of annoying. But you can pull the GitHub wiki down, you know, play with it yourself and you know, offer suggestions. So first kind of contributions you might be able to sort of, you know, help with, you know, missing screenshots, testing beta releases, as I said, fixing typos. You know, there's, I've had a few people come in and say, like, here's some Jamf policy that uses this thing, you know, can we use that as an example? So that's edited in. Jumping in, helping someone else out in Slack if you know what's going on. Is it worth it? Absolutely. Anvil, and you missed it. Oh, gosh. Anvil, there we go.
It's on a developer conference.
It is now. I'm talking about code. It's developer-ish. It's adjacent. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely worth it. You know, one of the things that I try to do whenever I'm doing a release, anyone that's helped me out, I always, if you've got a GitHub account, I always mention it in the release notes. And you get that little thing, you get the flag at the bottom, and that's how you see, like in GitHub, when you see contributors and you see all those little rows of photos, that's how you get your photo in there, you know, to say that, you know, you've helped with this project. Also, it feels good to give back. I haven't spoken much about AI. If you go have a look at Daniel's talk, he'll talk a lot about AI, using AI to sort of like, you know, find bugs and issues and all sort of stuff. If you want to use AI to do something to reformat a document and all that sort of whatnot, that's fine. You know, go through and use it as a tool to help you build the thing that you want to help with. Don't go and get it and then run AI over it and say, here. Like, that's, just assume that everything that's done is at least 50% wrong. It's a great tool, needs review. Absolutely needs review. But yeah, go have a look at Dan's talk about that, Daniel's talk. So yeah, so from my own personal experience, this is kind of like my journey where I've gone with this, and this is goes back to probably the last 10 years, back to about 2014. So I've helped out with these 5 projects. One of them happens to be mine. So Monkey, obviously everyone knows. Nudge. Swift Dialog is one that I've created from whole cloth. That's the only one I've created from whole cloth. Outset, which is a rewrite of a Python script into Swift, and the one at the end is Installamator, which a lot of people are using these days. So with Monkey, it really started out with you know, jumping into the forums, which at that time were on Google Code, having a chat on there, you know, talking, you know, working out how this thing worked, working out where things sort of needed sort of a bit of help, and if I could help, or if I could have an assist, or if I had a new idea. You know, sort of living in that space a bit before I sort of, you know, jumped in and sort of made my first commit. Greg is absolutely awesome to deal with. He's very particular about the types of ways that you can sort of commit in. There are some talks about where he sort of goes through that. But in terms of like what I did, so the managed software update icon. So if you used Monkey in version 1 days and you saw the update icon and then you have a look at it now and it's the sort of the bucket with the A thing. So that's a contribution that I made, one of the first ones I made, and that was when we were going over to Yosemite and the icons had changed and now everything's a circle, and now nothing's a circle anymore, it's a squircle. So someone's going to have to update it again if they haven't already. You know, that's just kicking off a conversation saying, hey, your old icon looks like trash on the new OS. Can we think about, you know, updating it? And the first answer you get is no. And then you say, yeah, but it looks, and then you just start a conversation. Pre-install and post-install alerts was something that I wanted for my organisation. So that's where you sort of click an install icon in Monkey and it pops up a little sheet that says, you know, do you really want to install this? And you can say no or you can say yes. Same thing for uninstalls. And then I did, so Monkey Hacks, and Monkey Hacks were the first thing that I did for Xworld 2017. So this is my first talk and got me started in Xworld, which was awesome. And I gave a nice little talk about modifying the Managed Software Center interface. That's how it looked back then. That's how I looked back then, Jesus. So yeah, so you know, hacking the JavaScript that sits behind Managed Software Center and getting it to do other things and put, you know, coloured buttons in there. So, you know, and then you do that, and I go, well, maybe this is just for someone else. I can share it. So, you know, thanks to Tony for letting me talk about that in my first ever Xworld. So you can actually go and watch that on YouTube. It's still on there. Monkey Hacking for Fun and Profit. Yeah, I look like that. I don't look like that anymore. Greg, that's the talk that most recent talk that Greg gave at Mac DevOps in Vancouver last year. He goes into a bit of detail how to contribute to open source. This goes into a bit more of the technical side. Like if you were going to contribute to Monkey, you can go into there. I'll go through this quickly. So Nudge, I helped with code improvements. Most of that was feedback because I used Nudge as a basis to build Swift Dialog, and then what I learnt there I fed back into Nudge, and we sort of helped improve the code together. That's another really great way to sort of help with these projects, is basically take it, do something else with it, make it your own, and then you learn, and then you can sort of like feed that back in. Swift Dialog was something which was fixes a problem that I had. So it was just something that I wanted to do. I needed to solve this sort of internally. It now has its own Slack community. It's basis of a whole bunch of other projects like Set Up Your Mac and stuff like that. And there is a talk tomorrow about some updates that are coming to that, including a non-circle icon. It's now squarish. Outset is it started as a Python script, and I took version 3, and when Python was going, Apple removed Python out of Mac OS, and so I went, well, I want to keep using this. I know Joe wasn't interested in sort of continuing maintaining it. So I thought, great, I'll take that and I'll convert it into Swift. And so the first version of that was literally line by line, taking each function and turning it into Swift. And now sort of, adding in new things, new features, stuff like that. That is Installmator. So Installmator, initially it was documentation, adding some feature support. I'm now part of the organisation there where I go in and I help merge PR requests. If you want a good example of a project where support is needed, Installmator is it. Just go and have a look at the pull request list there. There's something like 200 there at the moment. At one point we just smashed it and we knocked it down to about 30, and then it just goes back out again. So some more info. So MacAdmin's Open Source. A lot of projects on there. A lot of the stuff that I've listed in that first slide with all the stuff is in there. So go check that out. They're on. There's a Slack channel in MacAdmin Slack. They're on Mastodon, whatever it is, and there's a website like everyone else has. Some resources if you want to get started. Again, hacking with Swift, really great way to get into it. You just take it day by day. You go through 100 days and then get to the end of it. and you'll know a lot more about it than when you started. So it's a really great thing. If you can stick with it for the full 100 days, it's really great. Obviously, and Armin's got his book, The Terminal and Shell, really good place to start looking if you want to get into bash scripting. And of course, Apple Developer documentation. The Apple Developer app itself, go download that. That gives you access to a whole bunch of other stuff, WWDC, videos. You can go in there and bookmark stuff, come back to it later and reference it and all that sort of stuff. And thank you very much.